Well, hello and welcome. This is your host, KenDFoster for the Heal It Show. You're in the right place today. That's what I know. Did you know that right now, 66% of Americans are experiencing stress at least once a week? 33% of Americans have stress consistently. And about what is it? I just saw the statistic. 43% of adults report feeling anxious within the previous year, which tells me that a lot of you are stressed out, worried, and wondering what's going on, right? How would you like to live with less stress, more peace, more harmony in your marriages, in your relationships at work, with your friends? Well, that's what this show is all about. Today, we're going to be discussing conflict and how you can use the tools that we give you today to overcome conflicts in your life. Where does conflict start? Well, I believe conflict starts in the mind, right? You are attached to maybe a certain point of view, and you have a spouse. Let's give you a spouse, okay? I've been married for 25 years, so I know I've gone through my share of conflicts. And so I'm attached to a certain way of seeing things. And my wife is looking at a certain way of seeing things. And guess what? Now we have a conflict. How do you resolve that? How do we get to a place of peace and harmony between us? Sometimes people say, well, just walk away. Well, I've learned that if you just walk away, a lot of times those conflicts just come back up in another form. So today we're going to be discussing how you can overcome conflict and actually get to resolution so that you have more peace and more harmony in your world and in your relationships. How would that be for you? A lot of times it's difficult to stay calm when you are holding on to past resentments, past programming, past imprinting in your mind. It's difficult when you have you're living from a past emotion that you haven't let go. So part of this today, we're going to be talking a little bit about how do you get let go of past emotions. You can keep the memory, that's fine. But if you have an emotional attachment to it, what's happening is you're actually kind of a slave to that emotion, because people can say something to you and you react. I bet you can relate to that. How would you like to stop reacting? Wouldn't that be amazing? And just be in a place where you can more be the observer of what's going on, get some distance between what somebody says or doesn't say and your reaction, and be able to have a much more peaceful and harmonious relationship. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. I've got two I have a co-host today on my show, which is something new for us, and I have a very special guest. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
All right, we're back, and I'm going to bring on my guest, Dana, really in just a second. But I wanted to mention one thing to everybody out there. One of the things we do on this show is we are in service to one another, and the way you can be in service to your family, to your friends, the people you care about today, is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Why do I say that? Because when you subscribe, you can share the channel with all the people that you care about. You can share it, and we can all start to upshift and heal. All right, here's my guest. Dana, welcome to the show. Dana.
Hello, Ken. So great to be here with you today.
It's great to have you. I've been looking forward to this for several weeks now. We've been going back and forth with your PR agency, so I'm glad we could get you on here, Dana.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great conversation.
I think so. For those of you that don't know Dana Chi Williams, she's passionate. She's a passionate advocate for transforming conflict into connection, driven by a deep conviction that both personal and professional relationships can thrive through effective conflict resolution. Drawing from her personal experience in a 25-year marriage that evolved from traumatic to triumphant. I love that, Dana. Dana has witnessed the transformational power of healing conflict with intentionally and with care. Dana, it's you've done so much and around this. I love the fact that you started with your relationship, 25 years, and you and I are in the same place there. That's awesome. So you've gone through a few fires of challenges. How did you get started on this path of going, you know what, enough of this conflict? I want to figure out how to resolve it.
Yeah, it's interesting when you get to that point of you're just like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you've tried everything that you can try. And I really believe there's a point for all of us that we just get to the end of ourselves. Everyone has to hit their rock bottom at some point. And my husband and I hit our rock bottoms at different points in our marriage. But for me, I got to a place where I realized I could not continue in the path that we were going. If we were to continue along that path, we would have destroyed our family and maybe even destroyed one another.
Yeah. Well, you speak about the transformative power of conflict. Can you give me a few examples of what that means?
Sure. A lot of people look at conflict, and you said it earlier, Ken, a lot of people avoid conflict because we have been conditioned by society, by parents, by culture, that conflict is a bad thing. So when we see it, most of us lack the tools to properly handle it. So we feel like we're either going to numb it or we're just going to ignore it. The way that conflict actually can be transformative is that conflict can be our teacher. It teaches you what is really going on with me. Why am I being triggered here? What's going on beneath the surface? And then it also teaches us about the person that we're having conflict with. What's important to them? Where do these values clash? Where is there a misalignment, maybe with perception or beliefs or what have you? And I think if we can use conflict as a tool or as a mirror, then we can stop being so afraid of it, and we can actually allow conflict to do the work of transforming us into better versions of ourselves.
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there that's conflict to them is sometimes a win-lose, or I'm right, you're wrong. How do we get past this piece?
Yeah, one of the things I'm a marriage coach, and one of the things I tell my clients all the time is the purpose of communication is understanding, not agreement. So when we approach conversations thinking there's got to be a solution or there's got to be a winner, somebody's got to be right, someone's got to be wrong, we've already lost. But when we come into these conversations with the sole goal of help me understand you better, then there doesn't need to be a winner. So even if I don't get, quote, my way, if I learn something about, let's say in this example, I learned something about my spouse, I learned that something that I'm doing is triggering him, or I've learned maybe he's really tied into this value that I didn't realize was so important to him, then in that regard, then conflict has helped me to grow as a person. So it's not about, did I get my way? Did I come out on top? It's not about that at all. It's about learning how to understand your partner or whoever it is that you're in connection with better.
It seems like it starts a lot with our values. Like, I think a lot of people value peace. They value harmony. They value coherence. They want to have happiness, and they want that, they feel like they're, spiritually connected. I mean, there's some values here. So it's kind of a values conflict when we're in this conflict piece. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's really what we believe. You mentioned earlier, it's about these perceptions that we believe. So yes, our values are important, but then it's also sometimes we're just believing things that are not true. And when those things collide, that's when conflict can rear. So, case in point, for example, my husband and I got married super young and we grew up very, very differently. My husband grew up in a home where it was like Christmas every day. He just had all the name brands, all the newest, best, greatest things. We both grew up largely with single moms for a big portion of our childhood. But my mom was a school teacher raising 3 girls on our own. So I didn't have the latest, greatest, nicest of things. I grew up very frugal. I grew up, quite honestly with a scarcity mentality. So when we got married, you can imagine the conflicts that arose when we would have Christmas with our children. It would cause me you talked about anxiety. It caused me great anxiety because my husband wanted to like shower them with every toy in the toy department. And I was like, they don't need all that. They don't need all that, because I was very frugal. And so what we had to learn is that we're both right. It's not like I need to make him like me or he needs to make me like him, but how can we understand each other better? And then what lies do we need to dismantle so that we stop going to war with one another about who we are?
That's a big one. That's a big one for a lot of people. And, I think you touched on it. And I guess I touched on it too. How do we stay in it and not shut down? Not become aloof, not walk out of the room. We just stay in it and allow the conflict to be there, and have this mindset of, like you said, I'm going to grow, I'm going to learn, I'm going to understand, what has to happen for people to get there? Because it's great in theory, but how do people get there?
Yeah, it's tough. One of the things that my husband and I often say is our relationship is always more important than the problem. And you can really parse this out in a business relationship. If you're having conflict with someone at work, the goal has to be more important than the conflict. At the end of the day, if you prioritize your relationship or you prioritize the goal, then you just see conflict as a stepping stone to get to that goal. Is it messy? Yes. Is it sometimes painful? Yes. Is it going to reveal things about yourself that you might not like, or reveal something about that other person that you might not like? Yes. But we don't focus on the steps. We focus on the outcome, or we focus on the relationship. And when we go into it with that in mind, I think that anchors us a little bit more, gives us a little bit more perseverance to continue to move forward.
Well, I know my wife and I have a thing that we practice, and we've done this for 25 years. We don't go to bed angry. We don't go to bed with conflicts unresolved. And how do we do that? There's a part of us, for us, is that we surrender it. We surrender the ego. We surrender our righteousness. We surrender this have to be right. And sometimes it takes a little time. We got to get distance from each other, but we are committed to doing that, right? So we're committed to introspection. I look into my side of it. She looks into her side of it. We're big on forgiveness, right? We're big on saying, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Let's move on. I think that's the tool we use. Other tools that people might use, Dana.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear you saying a lot is humility. And I think humility has to be a value of ours, regardless of what relationship that you're in. You and your wife have this goal of, like you said, introspection. I look at forgiveness a lot. I think forgiveness is the currency of healthy relationships. Any relationship, we're going to offend. But the thing is, and I teach my kids this, people can offend you, but you don't have to take on the offense.
Yeah.
So someone might say something literally hurtful to you that they are trying to wound you with, but you don't have to take that. You don't have to receive it as an offense. So when you operate in a way that says my emotions and my behavior is not contingent upon your behavior or the way that you treat me. So my husband can be upset with me and I don't have to be upset with him. Or my child can misunderstand me and I don't have to roar at my child for misunderstanding me. I get to be me, you get to be you. And that's one of the things that we really do try to practice in our relationship.
You just touched on such a big piece. That was such a learning piece for me, is to allow my wife to be upset, and not try to fix her or fade her or make her better, or just allow her to be her. And that, I think as men, we want our wives to be happy, right? So we have that, like, well, what can I do? But bring her flowers, give her a card, tell her how much I love her, hold her hand, no, We just step back and let her be where she is. But we have to learn that. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, well, listen, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're blessed today. We have Dr. James with us today, and he's going to co-host with me here the rest of the show, and we're going to see where we go. This is a great place. Also, Dana, when we get back, I want you to tell the audience too how they can get a hold of you. So we'll be right back.
Imagine this is your money and someone wants to take it from you. Who is it? The IRS. Guess what? They want your money and they can take it, all of it if they want. Remember, they sent you that letter right over here that said, hey, you owe us a bunch of cash and we're going to take it from you right now. So what do? You fight back by letting our team of experts work it out with the IRS so you can keep your money. And hey, we're good at what we do. When you hire us, you get a team of guys on your side that know the IRS laws, and we'll fight really hard to save your money. So, if you owe the IRS a ton of cash and you want to keep it, call right now and learn for free how we can help you put it back in your pocket. 5 minutes of your time right now can save you thousands of dollars. And the best part, it's a free call, so please call right now.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Heal It Show. I'll be right back with my guest and co-host in just a minute. I want to let you know that I have a book out there right now. It's called The Courage to Change Everything, Daily Strategies and Essential Wisdom to help you awaken that inner genius within you. This book will help you on a daily basis to stay centered, to stay upbeat, to get clear, to get focused on your next steps. It's filled with wisdom from the ages, from everybody from Maya Angelou to Deepak Chopra to some of the presidents. What I've done is I found the most astute wisdom. I've put it in that book because why? We don't need more information. Just Google it. But if you want to have some wisdom, you have to learn from those that actually have it. When you do, your life gets better and better. So I hope you pick it up. CourageToChange.us is where you can get that book. CourageToChange.us. All righty. Well, now I have back here with my very special guest, Dana Chi Williams, and Dr. James is joining us today. Dr. James, it's great to have you here.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you, Ken. I know you're trying something new with me, and I really appreciate that, and great to be aboard.
Yeah, it's great to have you. This discussion is so pertinent to you because you and your beautiful wife, Tess Marie Sale, you've been married for how many decades now?
Well, we 26 years, so we got you guys by a year, maybe a couple months.
Okay, I love that. And we're Dana is a conflict resolution expert. I bet you and Dr. Tess have never gone through any conflict.
Oh, never. We have never had an argument in our lives. We actually work together as well, so we spend a lot of. No, we've never had conflict. My nose is getting long.
Never tell a good story with the don't. What is it? Don't spoil a good story with the truth, right?
The truth.
All right. So let Dana. I want to and Dr. James, please chime in anytime. But I want to talk about active listening, vulnerability, and empathy, and how do people how do they learn those core skills?
Well, I think the truth is what you just said. We have to learn them because most of us were not raised in homes where our parents sat us down and said, I'm going to teach you how to be an active listener, how to develop vulnerability and show empathy. So we do it wrong a lot. And then we get feedback from those that we're in relationship with that we don't necessarily call it feedback. Again, we think it's conflict or we think that we're being put down. But the way that we can learn these things is first and foremost, I would say, model someone that's good in these areas. So I would look at people, for example, who were good listeners, and I would just watch them in conversation or when they're listening to me, and I would pick up on little things like they didn't cut me off. They gave me eye contact. They asked good probing questions, but they didn't lead me along a certain path. And so I started picking up these clues subconsciously at first, and then it started to become very apparent to me what active listening looks like. In a nutshell, if people are wanting to be better listeners, if there's one simple piece of advice I would say, is just pay attention. We're so distracted by these things, these cell phones these days, right? And so if someone's talking to me and I'm on my phone and I'm looking up at you every 5 minutes and giving you a nod, I'm not listening to you. The truth is we all have ears, so we can hear, but very few people listen. And when you actually learn to listen, you learn. You learn not only about what the person is saying, but what they're not saying. And so listening is also then the gateway to true authenticity and vulnerability. Because if someone is willing to share their problem or their heart or whatever's wrong with them, they're willing to share that with me, they're entering into a vulnerable space. So I need to learn how to protect that space, to honor that space, and reciprocate vulnerability. So by doing that, that's how people also develop empathy. So we've heard empathy. Brene Brown is like probably the best teacher on, some of these topics. But empathy is not just putting yourself in another person's shoes, but it's putting yourself in another person's shoes as that person. So in a marriage, again, you might look at your spouse and say, well, if I were them, I would. Or if I were them, I wouldn't. That's not empathy because you're putting yourself in their shoes as you. You have to ask yourself, what would my spouse do? Or what is my boss thinking right now when I'm turning in these reports late? Can I be empathetic toward what they might be feeling in their shoes? So these three, it's kind of the trifecta of healthy communication. It's active listening, vulnerability, and empathy. They all go together to help us to improve our relationships.
Dana, I have a question for you. After 25 years of marriage, we've all been married a long time. We all have these. I love what you're saying, and we try to employ these things in our marriage all the time. The question is, I remember the day that I made this decision, and you probably do too. Like, when did you decide, hey, this marriage this is a commitment. This is what I want to do. I want to make this better. For me, it was a morning in Starbucks, and my wife and I we had a normal morning conversation. We were stressed about our day, and there's agitation in our voice, and you can hear it. Hey, you need to we need to figure out what we're going to order for coffee, because by the time we get to the barista, we need to know. So the agitation's in our voice, and we're kind of picking at each other, and it comes to our order, and all of a sudden, the barista's smiling, and here I am smiling. I would like a cappuccino, please. And we finish our order, and boom, finish the line. And I realized right then and there that I had just made an effort to speak nicer to this barista than I did to my wife all morning. And I knew that eventually, sometime in the morning, it would lead to an argument, because we're stressed about something is going to lead to an argument. And we realized right then and there that it was this chain of events that we get caught in over and over again. And we had a discussion. Hey, we need to change this. I want to institute I speak better to you than a barista, policy. So I remember that day. Do you remember that day for you? And how did that impact you? And how did that start?
I don't know, Dr. James, if it was a specific day for me or if it was just kind of a progression. My husband and I, we grew up, like I'd mentioned earlier, in very different types of childhoods, right? We saw conflict handled very differently. I grew up in a very physically abusive home, not toward me, but my mother was the victim of domestic violence. And so I saw lots of anger, rage, dysfunction, the whole nine. My husband, on the other hand, grew up in a home where his parents, his mom married when he was 11 years old. So again, she was a single mom for a while, then she got married, but he never saw his parents have conflict or even an argument. So here I am, like, seeing conflict at its worst all the time. And on the very opposite end of the spectrum, he never saw conflict. So neither are good. We're approaching this, right, with a fear of conflict and then with just overreacting a lot. So for me, I think it was this progression of, I don't want to repeat the same patterns in my family that I saw growing up. So there was this conscious decision of things have to be different. But then, as you get older, you start noticing, oh, shoot, I'm starting to sound like my family of origin. This is starting to feel very familiar to me. And so I think, my faith plays a lot into this. I went through a major transformation in my own personal life. And that was the impetus of really what helped me to start to say, oh, no, we have really got to rework some things in the mind first. It's not just about the behavior. It has to start in the mind. And so that was kind of my journey.
So how did you get your husband engaged? I mean, for me, I literally, I had to realize what was going on. And I sat down with my wife, and it was like a decision we had to make together. And one of the things that I realized we had to do is, just like you said, my wife is also a physician, very educated, and we were both raised in both of our families to be, the one that was right. we were the one that knew the most. So we realized that we were instituting that in our marriage. Like, we're trying to figure out who was right, who was better. And at one point I realized that she was a very intelligent person. I was an intelligent person. We had survived in our lives up to that point. So we knew enough to do the right things. So we were both right. I realized this is why we're fighting, is that we are both right.
I think I want to comment on that too. I think a lot of couples go through that, and there's this tension that is between the couple. We feel this tension, and I think that's the key to transformation, is when you start to feel that. And Dana, I want to get your, there's a lot of people thinking, well, yeah, we're in that place. One person all of a sudden gets an insight. You know what? I love you dearly. I don't want to have this tension, but they're afraid to maybe bring up the next thought that would create a little more tension. What do you suggest there when that happens?
I always say someone's got to be just courageous and go first. My husband and I, we just last night got back from a marriage retreat, and it was about an hour and a half drive to this retreat. And we had just, of course, dealt with a conflict right on the way to this marriage retreat. So we have this long drive, and long drives are usually a great time for us, right? They're the best. We've just gotten out of conflict, or really kind of on the tail end of it. So it's like, is this going to be a silent drive, or are we going to actually converse here? And my husband said something to me. He said, I could see that there was something bothering you, but I didn't want to say anything. And so as a coach, I know how to ask probing questions, right? So my next question to him was, what did you sense was going on with me? And so one of the things that I help couples to do is, a lot of people are afraid to say the wrong thing, especially if it's already a tense situation. I don't want to make it worse. So I don't want to say something that might make it worse. So instead of you saying something or making a statement, it's good to learn how to ask good questions. And those questions really start, again, going back to what I said about, I want to understand you better. Those questions are all about, help me understand you better. If my husband would have said to me, for example, Dana, I see that you're upset. What's bothering you? That would have broke the tension in me. I would have felt like he cared about me. I would have felt like he saw, right? He was paying attention to what was going on. And that would have broke that ice a lot faster than what happened. And so that's one of the things. Don't be afraid of having those courageous conversations, and learn how to ask good questions.
I love that. All right. Well, listen, I got to take a quick break. When we come back, what I like to talk about when we come back is you're a relationship coach. You've helped countless clients work through misunderstandings. I'd like to know what some of the common patterns or barriers are to connection that you see. So we're going to talk about that right when we get back.
Hi, everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Welcome back, everybody. This is your host, KenDFoster. I'm talking to Dana Chi Williams and Dr. James. We're having a discussion about conflict and conflict resolution, how you can stay in conflict, become a master of conflict, and be able to have a lot more, harmony in your life. That's what I think that we're talking here. Okay, Dana. So let's go down that question. You know, you see patterns, you see people. What are the common patterns you see?
I think the biggest common pattern that I see are people with unmet needs or unspoken expectations. So a great deal of what I do, which I love, is premarital counseling. And so when a couple is dating or they're engaged, right, everything's great for the most part. They are thinking this is going to be the best relationship of my life. You know, they've got all of these expectations and they assume that their partner knows what those expectations are. So they get married and all of a sudden their needs are not being met. So I will often say when they're on the other side, now they're married and they're seeking me out as a marriage coach, I will say, well, did you ever tell your spouse that that's a need that you have? And it's like silence. Well, no. Well, how did you expect for them to know that? So one of the things that we can do is learn how to be more vocal about what our needs are and what our expectations are. This, again, taps into vulnerability because if I tell you my need and then you don't meet my need, now I'm even worse off than before because now you know and you're just simply not doing it for whatever reason. So there's got to be a level of trust in our relationships where we're able to open up and say, you know, I need, for example, I need affection. I'm not feeling cared for. I see all the good things that you're doing and I appreciate that, but I need affection. And that's what this looks like to me. So really being able to give your partner some tangible help. This is what it looks like to me. And then being willing to say, how can I meet your needs? I think feedback is one of the greatest things that we can give our partners because oftentimes we don't know that there's a problem. Like me, I didn't speak up about my problem. And so my husband could see what was happening and he didn't ask me. I'm not speaking up. So we've got this unnecessary tension in our relationship.
Interesting.
And I like the way you put it, Dana. And it took, I don't know how many, probably 7 years of marriage, probably 7 years into our marriage before we figured it out. And it was just how to discuss our needs. Instead of saying, you know, like you said, I need more affection. I would like us to spend more time together. That wording that takes a lot of years to form. Like it usually came out, you don't hug me anymore. You don't, you know, you've transformed in your verbiage without even realizing it, just how we even come across. The words that we use can come across as attacking without intending to. And so part of it is, hey, you know what? We call it the better than barista words. I like the way you put it.
James, I love what you just said because, you know, a lot of people do what you just said. Mm-hmm. It's the trial and error method. Okay. And it takes them 7 years, 10 years, whatever. Their marriage goes up and down. They have high points and low points. They really don't know what they're doing. You know, there's not necessarily a playbook for marriage. That's why you go and you see Dana Chi Williams so that you can collapse that 7 years into 6 months. By the way, Dana, how do people get a hold of you?
The best place is to go on my website, danache.com. So it's DANACHE.com. And I do a free discovery session, 20-minute discovery session with people if they want to know, are we on the right track? We might need some extra help. How can you help us? I'm willing to meet with people on the website. So that's the best place. They can find all my links and all the things that I offer, resources and things there.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. We're scrolling it on the screen right there. DanaChe.com for my listening audience. DanaChe.com. Okay. So listen, this is a great discussion. You know what? So many questions. I bet James has questions too, but my question is this. I have two questions. So I'll do the first one. when people come into a relationship, and this is why they see you, Dana, when they come into a relationship and one of the partners has, quote, baggage, right? They were in another relationship, they haven't let go of, what this person did to them or didn't do to them, and they bring that to the next relationship. And of course, that will create conflict. How do you deal with that?
Oh my goodness, such a great question. I actually did a podcast episode on this called emotional baggage. And the truth is that we all have emotional baggage. I know we've kind of made it into a meme, and we think only certain people have baggage, but we all have baggage, whether that baggage came from your family of origin, whether it came from previous relationships, or maybe your own thinking. We bring these things into relationships. So this is why, again, it's really important when the couple is in the dating phase that you are spending time getting to know one another, getting to know one another's story, looking at red flags, not being afraid of them, not ignoring them, but addressing those red flags head on. So in my relationship, for example, we were both products of single parents. So I had to ask my husband some really important questions. He had to ask me some important questions. You're not ever going to be able to completely rid yourself of all baggage, but what you can do is you can be aware of how this baggage is affecting my life. How is it affecting my thoughts, my beliefs, my behavior? And then if you're willing to be vulnerable again and be honest, what baggage am I willing to let go of? This baggage is no longer serving me. I'll say this, a lot of women specifically, let's say you get married later on in life and you've been used to doing everything on your own. You've had to pay your own bills. You've had to put gas in your own car. You've had to fix stuff around your house. And then you get married. Well, now there's got to be a shift to you're now partnered. There's someone else who can help you to carry that load. If you don't realize that independence that you had before, it's not a bad thing, but it needs to shift because it's not necessary. You're now in a partnership. So you've got to be willing to be honest and vulnerable and say, okay, what no longer serves me in this season of my life? It doesn't mean that those things were bad, but I can lay some of that down so that I can have a more productive relationship in my marriage.
I love that. Yeah, that's really good. And I think that the other question I had was forgiveness. We touched on a little bit, but what happens if you have one partner that really struggles with forgiveness and they just hold on to it? What do you do? How do you deal with that? You're if you're the partner that doesn't hold on, you can release it, but your partner holds on to. They have these memories that might last for a year, 2 years, 10 years, right? And they just haven't let it go. How do you deal with that?
That person may need to seek professional help. We all get hurt at some point in our lives, and we usually get hurt the deepest by the people that we're closest to. Forgiveness, though, I often say forgiveness is not about the other person so much as it's for you. So there's an old saying that says, holding on to unforgiveness is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. When you hold on to that, you're really poisoning yourself first and foremost, and then you're poisoning that relationship. There's also a misunderstanding with forgiveness. Sometimes people don't forgive because they think if I forgive, that means that I'm saying it's okay. That means that I'm saying that this person is justified. That's not forgiveness at all. And also, you can forgive someone and not be reconciled to that person. So they don't mean the same thing, but forgiveness is always about you. It's a pathway for releasing the bitterness, releasing the pain. I have a whole course that I talk about this in where you release the pain by forgiveness. So whether you choose to be reconciled to that person or not, if that relationship has to end, it has to end. But you can go on free and healed because you've chosen to release, not say what the person did was wrong or right, but to say, I choose to release. The biblical definition of forgiveness, if you will, is to release someone of a debt that they owe you. So maybe they owe you something, they hurt you, they damaged you, they destroyed your trust, but I can choose to release them and place a stamp on that debt that they owe and say, paid in full.
Dana, I was wondering, do you have different ways or discuss different ways of forgiving, different languages, for example? Because you and I believe, connect. Like we verbalize the way you talk. I can just see it. I speak with that like that with my wife, and can just see her face. She's like, I don't talk that way. Like this. That's not. I want you to do stuff for me. So she's more of a a physical person. So we figured out a language, she'd rather me do her dishes rather than say things. And I'd rather her talk to me than to do things. So with different languages, are there different forgiveness languages, for example?
I often say forgiveness is a choice and it's a process. So we choose to forgive people. People don't have to earn our forgiveness. They have to earn our trust, but they don't have to earn our forgiveness. Forgiveness is a choice, but it is also a process, depending on how deep the wound was. So if, you went through something extremely traumatic, well, you're probably not going to forgive on Thursday and be okay by Friday. It's going to take a little bit of time. But I think what you said about you and your wife, the behavior of forgiveness, what does forgiveness look like? So oftentimes my husband, if I say I forgive you, he'll try to kiss me. And if I'm like, I don't want to kiss you, he's like, you haven't forgiven me, right? Because forgiveness looks like something. So I hear what you're saying, that there's got to be some action behind it. There's got to be some proof, if you will, that this person has actually forgiven me. But I do think that it starts with the verbal. There's something really powerful. When our kids were really little and they would, fight each other or have these disagreements, we would teach them to apologize and say, I'm sorry that I hit you. Not I'm sorry you're mad, because that's putting the responsibility on the other person, right? But to say, I'm sorry that I hit you. I'm sorry that I hurt you. And then we taught the other child, you have to say, I forgive you. And so that's a very important, powerful tool to learn early in childhood, so that, again, you're not 45 years old still holding on to stuff from when you were 19.
I'm just so laughing because I know that, there's a lot of 45-year-old, 50-year-olds, 30-year-olds that are just learning these principles, right? Because they weren't taught in schools. They weren't taught in their home. And, it's okay because listen, if you're a learner, you become a leader. And if if you're bitter, you can get better if you listen to Dana's points here. Dana, one last thought here. Actually, I need to take a break, but here, what we're going to do, we come back, we'll have a few minutes. Let's talk about somebody that wants to have a healthier relationship. What's their next steps? We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. Joe Namath here. Did you know that I wear hearing aids? I love my hearing aids, and I am here to help you get a deal on the same brand I wear.
Don't waste thousands on expensive hearing aids when you can get MD Hearing's revolutionary Neo hearing aids for just $297 a pair. The Neo is a true hearing aid, not an amplifier. With rechargeable technology many customers say is superior to more expensive models. And you can get 2 Neo hearing aids with a 45-day risk-free trial, free shipping, and free lifetime US-based support for only $297. The Neo is nearly invisible with its tiny in-the-ear canal design.
Call my friends at MD Hearing and get the over-the-counter hearing aids that I use for you.
Call now and get not 1 but 2 Neo hearing aids for just $297.
800-789-7885. Again, that's 800-789-7885.
Well, welcome back to the Heal It Show. This is your host, KenDFoster. I'll be right back with my very special guests, Dana Chi Williams and Dr. James, are my co-hosts today. I want to remind you to go and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com/@thecouragenetwork /@thecouragenetwork, or just look us up on YouTube so that you'll never miss a show. And of course, you can share our shows with your family and friends. We hope you'll do that. Thank you so much. Dana T. Williams, I love this discussion. I really, really love it. You are such a master in this area. Okay, there's a new person out there, and they want to just have healthier relationships. Maybe they're not new. Maybe they've been in the relationship for 10 years, 20 years, and they're ready for a renewal. How do they do it?
You start by renewing yourself. So often we think that in order to have a better relationship, my partner has to be on board. They've got to want it too. And the truth is that's not true. I often give the analogy of a dance. Let's say we're waltzing together, Ken. I don't know how to waltz, but let's say I did. So we're doing the waltz, right? If I decided now I want to do a different dance, I just have to change my step in the dance. And then if you want to continue to dance with me, you're going to be forced to change your step too. But it has to start with one person saying, I am willing to change me. What gave my husband and I, we talk about our transformation story often, and he will often tell people, I started to change when I realized it was in my responsibility to change. Dana was changing on her own. He was seeing that I was changing, but my changes were not contingent upon whether he was going to change or not. And oftentimes people become victims and they become captives to their own relationships because, well, my spouse isn't going to change. So what's the point in me changing? Well, the point in you changing is so that you can become a better person, so that you can grow, even if your spouse isn't quite on board yet. But I truly do believe that if you are in a functional relationship, it doesn't have to be overly healthy yet, but if you're in a functional relationship, most people are going to see, wow, I'm seeing my partner making some differences, some changes. Maybe I should start looking in the mirror a little bit myself.
I think that's a really, really, really good advice for people. So we put on the screen again, DanaChe.com, the DANACHE.com. That's where you can get a hold of Dana. And we're just about out of time. So I want to thank my co-host, Dr. James, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I hope I added something to your show. I didn't want to overstep my boundaries, but
Dr. James, just you being here is awesome. You bring amazing energy, and you brought some great questions and great examples of your own life. So I think people can relate to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Dana, final thoughts for our audience. You got an audience around the world right now. What's message for them?
I would tell people that, relationships can be messy, but they can also be some of the greatest miracles that you can ever experience. I believe that there is no greater joy than to be sharpened. The Bible talks about iron sharpens iron, and to be sharpened by someone that you love, to become a better person, to become someone who's more loving, more faithful, more giving. This is the goal of all relationships. And so you got it. You've got it in you. You've got what it takes. There's no relationship that's out here operating by magic. It's just learning the right principles and putting those principles into play.
I love it. I love that. And it's not about making somebody wrong. You're wrong. They're right. They're right. You're wrong. It's not about that. It's about learning, growing, and becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. It's been an honor.
I want to thank all of you for listening today. And I hope you will pass the shows on to the people that you care about so that you can help upshift their lives. And of course, they upshift your own. Take care. Till next time.